questions that are being asked, I'd like to mostly address, so this is my preference, is questions that affect how you walk. Questions about living this out. What he's always told me is, tell them that if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they'll be where they're supposed to be. But you need a teacher to teach you what it is you need to be doing. All right, so welcome to Zone 1. All right, so this is a really valuable, critically important part of what we do. Answer questions. Actually, part of it is asking questions. If you don't ask questions, there's no answers, right? You have to ask the questions. And we try to do this because and it didn't take very long for me to figure this out, but over the years that I've been doing this, I realized that people have questions. And teachings do often address the questions, but not always with enough clarity, or maybe it doesn't exactly hit the question that you want. Or maybe you don't know what teaching to go look for. Maybe you're so new, you've only listened to a couple of teachings and you've got, 700 to go to catch up. All right, so we have this opportunity to ask questions. And so that's even why after a teaching, I take questions, just to make sure that there's clarity as to what's being shared as instructional and informational for you to walk this out. And so we quickly recognize, at least I quickly recognize that we want to do this for everyone, not just locally, but as well as around the world, and recognizing that the time zones don't allow us to all be on Shabbat at the same time, because right now it's 3:30 in the afternoon here. It is no longer Shabbat anywhere else but in Zone 1. Okay, Zone 2, Zone 3, they are not on Shabbat anymore. Okay, so that's why we want to have meetings that are able to meet with them and give them their opportunity to ask questions while it's still Shabbat, okay? Now, but Zone 1 being the biggest zone that we work with as far as the amount of people that currently interact with us, and that could change, but at the moment it's the largest one that interacts with us, we realize that there's really two separate groups within Zone 1. You guys here physically in this building, about 200 of you, and then everybody else that's online that lives in US, Canada, Mexico, Central and South Americas, and that kind of thing, right? So we rotate every other month which one of you two groups gets to do the Zone 1 questions. So you guys here locally, it's your turn today, okay? Now, bear in mind, if you're online and you have some questions, you may want to have them ready in case, because if they don't use up the allotted time, I may open it up to some of you online. But by some of you online, I mean those of you in Zone 1, okay? So if you're going to want to go ahead and start lining up over here, you can start lining up. Now, I will absolutely take and this would be probably a good time to do it, all your Passover unleavened bread related questions, because after all, we're heading into that. Now, I've already done teachings on that. We have the Passover Q&A. It's 2 parts. Okay, I've got the appointed times of Yahweh. I've actually got some of my notes here with me in case you guys ask questions about those things. But I think that it's important that you get these questions answered, especially as we get to a feast. On the other hand, I also would rather not reteach these teachings every single year. I mean, they're already there for you to go listen to. And you can do it at 24/7 anytime you want. They're available. Okay? So you don't have to only ask questions about that today, but I certainly will entertain those questions today. So we'll begin here with John.
Hey, Rabbi.
Yes.
I have a question that everyone I know my age and everyone single has. How can you find the right person in this dark times, in this dark world?
I've got a lot of married people with the same question. No, I'm kidding. Did I say that out loud? I didn't mean that. I didn't. All right, so I just do that because Billy likes when I make faces. All right. He's going to do this like a whole reel one time with just me making faces. Just put that on YouTube. Look, the thing of the matter is that we are not trained, instructed, mentored, guided, almost zero, in picking and selecting a life mate, a life partner, someone you're going to live your life with exclusively. We're really not. We have this understanding that that's something we want, We see other people doing it. I mean, everybody around us seems to be doing that. They're getting married, but we also see half of them getting divorced. And that's because you've got really pathetic human beings married to each other. We're all pathetic on a lot of levels, and we're not very good at being, good, whatever that looks like in terms of relationships, right? Good in terms of relationships. But we also don't tend to have any really good instruction on the selection process. So you got two issues. One is, how do I find somebody? Really, the big question is, what happens when I find somebody? How do I know if they are that somebody? Okay, how do I know if is this person the right person for me to spend the rest of my life with? That's really the tougher question. Now, let me answer the first question first. You should be walking in emunah. Walking in emunah means it doesn't matter if it's raining, it doesn't matter if it's snowing, doesn't matter if it's 400 degrees outside, doesn't matter if there's a war going on, doesn't matter if there's poverty, doesn't matter if there's a tornado or famine or a hurricane. None of that matters. You're walking knowing that he fully has sovereignty over everything, okay? And if you trust that he has sovereignty over everything, that means that he also has sovereignty over providing you with shelter, clothing, food, income, all those things, including a spouse. Because I know that this comes up quite a bit. We don't have, and this is especially, I talk to the ladies as well as the men, we don't have a huge amount of people in this little pond we're all swimming in. Okay, it's a very small place to be fishing. It just is. I mean, when you talk about the fact that, Christianity is gigantic, several billion people. But then you might be, but I'm a specific denomination. But even that denomination's got millions of people, okay? Within the Messianic, if you take all Messianics, it's probably worldwide only a couple 100,000 maybe, those that claim to be Messianic on any level. I'm not even talking about Torah observant and covenanted properly. I'm just saying those who claim to be doing some Torah and believing in Messiah on some level, right? Very small relative to the planet. Planet's got, 7 billion people, okay? So it's a really small number. Now, you then take that and you go, but I really would like somebody who's in m.t.o.i. I'd like someone who's under rabbi. I'd like someone who understands the walk that I understand, that understands what covenant is the way you understand what covenant is. And by the way, I would never, ever encourage any of you to marry anybody outside of that. This is not a cultish thing for me to say. This is me preemptively not wanting to deal with the nonsense when it goes bad. Okay? Look, there is no doubt that you can find somebody to marry. If you loosen up whatever standard you want to loosen up, you can find somebody. I'm just saying, depending on how loose you want to make that. Okay, you can make it about their belief system, you can make it about their looks, you can make it about their personality, you can make it about their income, you can loosen up your standards in any way you want. The question is, what are the things that make it work long term? Okay, so one of the things that makes it work long term is that two are walking together in agreement. Scripture tells you that two can't walk together unless they have an agreement on how they're going to walk. Now, you can tell me, but I know some people that are unequally yoked and they seem fine. Key word, seem. Okay? And some of them are fine. Did you want to get married to be fine? To just be okay? Or did you want to be spectacular, fabulous, and awesome and just having just the love of your life? Okay? Very hard to do when you're not on the same page in any area. Okay? You don't agree about money, you're going to have a problem. You don't agree about social things, you're going to have a problem. You don't believe the same about politics, you're going to have a problem. Religion, you're going to have a problem. Sex, you're going to have a problem. Anything that you're way off on, you're going to have a problem. Okay? Which is part of the vetting process that I teach to help minimize that problem. I'm only helping to minimize it because if you don't share what you needed to share with each other and you didn't mean it necessarily and you held things back or you said what you thought the other person wanted to hear, then it's not going to work. All right, so my encouragement to you, John, is there is somebody out and available and around that Abba may have for you. And by the way, I don't want you thinking about like your destiny of this one person, okay? there's probably more than one person out there that you could meet and be spectacularly working well with. So don't think that you have to find that one and only, and if you missed it, oh my gosh, I missed that one person. But when you do find one of those few people out there that would work well with you, that's what you need to pursue and latch on to, and never think that there's another one after that. Okay? Don't wonder, did I settle? Don't settle. Never settle. Okay, so first of all, emunah. We trust that Abba, if he has a plan for you to be married, has somebody available for you to marry at the right timing in the right way. Okay, that's number one. Look, I use this as a story all the time. I do not wish this on anybody. But I didn't get married till 35. I don't wish anybody to wait that long. I hated it. It was awful for me. I didn't like being single. But I found the right person at 35. Okay? That was worth the wait. But the thing is, I didn't know how worth it was going to be or not when I was miserable waiting. And I have to tell you, this is something I'm familiar with from the point of view, because you're like, well, but Rabbi, you didn't have m.t.o.i at that time. Look, I started off single in my belief system in the Worldwide Church of God. Okay? Now, the church area I went to in New York, remember the Sabbath-keeping church, Holy Day-keeping church, feast, the kosher, all the laws. They kept everything the best they could. I'm not endorsing them. They don't keep anything now. I'm not even sure they still exist, but they moved to Sunday and everything else. But the thing is, when I was there, this church group that I went to in New York, in Queens, New York, had over 900 members. Probably over 100 single between the age of, say, 20 and 40. The problem was this. The singles between 20 and 30 were all men. There was no women. All the women that I could possibly show an interest in were either, when I was about 23, they were like 35 or older or 18 and younger. There wasn't anybody. So you may think, oh, but the congregation's so small, how am I going to find somebody? I was in a 900-person congregation with tons of singles that were just all guys. All right? Then I would find out, I'd go to a feast, I'd go to like Sukkot, and I'd meet some of these single ladies and find out they lived in like Alabama, where everybody in their congregation is all single women. I'm like, that's geographically undesirable. Okay, I'm in New York City and you're in Huntsville or wherever you were in Alabama. That just doesn't work. Or they were in Texas and like, oh, we got a lot of single girls here, but no guys. And I don't know why Abba did that, why he caused or allowed that. But this is not just because we're a small group, okay? Because you could be in a very large group and still there wouldn't be much choices. By the way, then I showed up in Florida to a congregation that was a split off in the United Church of God in Clearwater, St. Pete area, okay? And they had one single girl in the whole congregation, my wife, okay? So it doesn't need to be a whole lot of them there either. And I didn't pick her, she was the only one. They didn't pick me, I was the only one, all right? But it only needed to be one, right? Look, we've done a lot of weddings where people met each other at Sukkot and at Passover. People come to these events and they meet each other. That happens all the time. You just need to be doing the thing you need to be doing, which is what? Becoming the best possible, whatever role you're in. For the men, become the best possible man to be a husband. For the ladies, become the best woman to be a wife. So that when you finally do meet the person, you're ready to do that part of it. Because if you meet that person and you're not prepared, that person's not going to want you. Because they're not going to want to wait for you to develop. Okay? Not unless you're both like 20 years old. Okay? They're going to want you to have already figured out a little bit of how to be what you need to be. Okay? I'm just saying, ladies, you want some great guy making a great living, then are you going to be a great wife? Do you know how to support a man? Do you know how to encourage a man? Do you know how to believe in your man? And all? Guys, you want a great wife? What are you doing to give her? What are you bringing to the table? Everybody should be thinking about, what am I bringing? Because you all know what you want, but do you bring anything to deserve that? Okay, that's what I want from both sides, because both of you guys are in delusion land. Okay, you ladies want something you have no qualification to get, and same thing with the guys. You want something you're not qualified to deserve either. Work on you so that you're ready, qualified, and a desirable, selection for whoever that person is when you meet them. That you have all of your ducks in a row and you're all set to go. Okay? That was probably the best singles. When I went to this one singles event back in that church, they had guys who would speak to us and teach us a little bit. And he said, you need to just become the best potential mate right now. Don't worry about finding one. If you were honest with yourself, you probably realize you weren't ready. I was not ready till 35. I just wasn't. I was so busy running around trying to start businesses and do all these other things and focus. I did not have the capacity to give that kind of attention to anybody. And a lot of the things I was doing would work, then they wouldn't work. And I wasn't stable enough either to provide, okay? And so it took a while. And so I can't be like faulting, well, why'd you let me be single so long? Well, but he's looking down at me because you were not ready. You were just not ready. And actually, he gave me a wife when he was ready to do something else with me, which has moved me into this, which is what we ended up in ministry almost immediately after we got married, within like a year and a half. Okay, so that was why he timed that out. And so he's got the timing. So just be patient with that timing. Yes, these are dark times. Don't ever let dark times be anything that says, well, then maybe we shouldn't have marriages. Maybe we shouldn't have children and bring them into this terrible world. This terrible world? What's so bad about this world compared to any other world going back however many thousand years? The world's always been terrible. When was the world not terrible? Because even if it was not terrible where you lived, it was terrible somewhere else. The world's always been terrible. And it's also had pockets of not so terrible in windows of time. But you hear the young people today all like, well, what's the point? Global warming's just going to kill everybody. And what if it doesn't? Because it's not going to. But what if it does? See, they're listening. By the way, parents, you're messing your children up because you who obsess on all of these, end of world event, conspiracy, whatevers, they hear you. And then they wonder, what's the point? Everything's going to hell in a handbasket and we're all not going to, life's going to end anyway. Why should we do anything? Why should I get a career? Why should I get married? Why should I have children? Every generation has this kind of a dumb conversation, and a lot of people make dumb decisions not to do these things thinking the world is ending, and then it doesn't. It says that when we get into that changed place, like when we're no longer in this physical suit, then we're no longer given in marriage. These things are because we're not going to be in a physical body. Until that, as long as you got a flesh suit on, we should be doing all the things he designed us to do, which is to get married, have children, and things that we're capable of doing. That's what you were designed to do in this model, right? When we get upgraded to the new model, we're not going to be doing those things exactly the same. Okay, we won't have the flesh part of it, right? But as the manufacturer produced us, he produced us to do these things, all right? Now, as far as that, when you do find somebody, don't do this from desperation. Don't settle. So here's my guidance to all of you. And by the way, this is for all of you who are married too. In your marriage and in your singleness, be 100% yourself. Don't be what they want or what you think they want or what somebody else wants. Now, being you may not be great. You may need to fix that. But that's you fixing it, not you pretending to be something else. Okay? So you need to be you. Look, when I met my wife, I told this story all the time. We were sitting one day, we're sitting by my apartment complex. We were sitting out by the pool. The sun was setting. We're just having a nice conversation. We had gone out to dinner. And she looked at me and she was like, listen, I don't want to waste any time, because she was also in her 30s. And she was like, if you're not this, and this, tell me now so I don't waste my time. Man, she was straight. Boom. I know that's surprising to all of you, but all right? And I looked her in the eye honestly and said, I'm not all of that. But I will say your list is really good. And those are all on my list of things I'm working in the direction of. You can believe that as a line or you can believe it as true. But it was true. I was aiming at those. Those are my development list too, of where I wanted to end up eventually. Some of the things I already was, some of them I wasn't. Now, I could have just said to her, I said, look, I can just tell you I'm all that and be lying. And some of you would do that, some of you guys. Or the ladies, if it was the other way around. No, be real. Be honest, because when you get married, you're going to find out the truth anyway. And then you're going to be like, wait, you weren't like this when we were dating. You weren't like this when I met you. No, they were. They were just hiding it and not, because they were just wanting to get you. Or you were wanting to get them and you weren't honest. A lot of dishonesty going on in the dating process. That's because dating is awful. Nobody should ever date. You should vet. Okay, you're vetting them. Are you the person that will make the most sense for me to spend the rest of my life with? Am I the right person to spend your rest of your life with? Do we have enough that can work well together so that makes some sense? It's not about, oh, he's hot, she's hot, and all that, chemistry. Oh, yeah, there needs to be chemistry. But it can't be about the chemistry from that sexual drawing and that attraction drawing. Because you get so distracted with that, you're not going to pay attention to all the stuff that's jacked up about the rest of it. There will be stuff. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You went after the looks and the thing that seemed all wonderful and found out the rest of that person was pretty jacked up. And you know what I'm talking about. Matter of fact, the prettier and better looking they are, the more jacked up they usually are. Okay? Go look up on YouTube the hot crazy matrix. Okay? This goes for guys and ladies too. Okay? Some of you remember back in school, the guy or the girl that was the one everybody like, oh my God, they were the craziest, out of control people. You didn't want that. So don't be distracted by all that. Look for the quality person that you match and team up with well. That synergizes with you, completes you, right? And you complete them. So the vetting process is the key. That's for all you teenagers. Don't be all excited about your emotions and all this other stuff while you guys are all talking to each other instead of listening to me. I caught you. You guys don't even, why do you think that I'm not right here seeing everything? If you guys sit there doing what you do. Look, you need to be very selective. I'm telling you, divorce is awful. A bad marriage is awful. So sometimes divorce is the only option that makes any sense when the marriage is bad enough. How about let's pick better? Okay, not that you do the best picking you can and it doesn't work, that it guarantees it'll work every time, but you can put yourself in a much better position. Because nobody, I'm promising you, nobody taught any of you how to do this. I wasn't taught how to do this. Praise Yah, I ended up in a good one. But it wasn't without struggles. All marriages have struggles. But it's that vetting process that we need to have, okay? And so, one of the reasons I think the vetting with my wife and I worked really well is because we knew enough then not to get physical early. Because that distracts you from all the stuff that may irritate you and, because you don't care, because right now you're just enjoying being physical with the person, so you ignore the other stuff. Well, guess what happens? You get married and the physical stuff diminishes and the annoying stuff increases. Okay? And actually, it's not that it increases, you're just a whole lot more aware of it. And you say things like, but you weren't like that. And the person goes, yes, I was, but you couldn't see it then. You were distracted. Okay? Because you were in the hunt. You were trying to get a marriage proposal. Or you were trying to get a marriage yes, if you're the guy. You want the yes, the woman wants the proposal, and that's all you're focused on instead of getting the right person. Slow down. Be patient. Okay? Be patient. If you're not completely self-sovereign, remember I talked about this from the idea of being submissive. You can't be submissive till you have your sovereignty first. What do I mean by that? A lot of you are ruled by your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your friends, your this. These people all influence you more than you influence you. You're pushed around and influenced because you're all afraid of what everybody else is going to think. I've done that. There was a young lady I liked when I was a teenager, probably with nothing wrong with her, and we got along great. And some of my friends said, you're like her? I didn't know why they did that. And I didn't even make an effort to figure that out because I was a young, shallow teenager. And I just completely dropped it like a hot potato because my friends all didn't. I was like, that was dumb. Now I'm glad it happened because I didn't end up with her. What I'm just saying is you don't want to have that be in your life where you're going to be influenced by everybody else. Be yourself, be in charge, be sovereign, submit then all of that to him, trust him, and then you can go find that person. You got to be comfortable in your own skin. You got to know who you are. You got to know where you're going and where you want to go so that you find someone going where you're going. Okay, if you're a man, you want someone who's going to go where you're going. If you're a woman, you want a man that's going where you want to follow. I want to look up to, I want to be inspired by, I want to go and follow that man where he's going because I like where he's going. Because he's going to take me where I want to go because we're going in the same place, in the same direction, with the same level of lifestyle, with the same things that, to enjoy. Life's short, but in some ways it's really long if you're with the wrong person and you're miserable. Because that can be long. Okay? There's a song by Meatloaf. Hey, listen, 1977, that's all you heard in New York on the radio. Some of you are like, 1977, yes, 14 years old. Okay, Paradise by the Dashboard Light. There's a line in there where he's trying to get this girl to want to be intimate with him, and she said that he would have to first promise to love her till the end of time. So he promises her just so that they can be intimate. And then at the end of the song, he's like, and now he's praying for the end of time to hurry up and come along. Because he says, if I got to spend another minute with you, I don't think I can make it. But some of you do that. The line of the song is so real for a lot of people. Because you make all these promises just because you want the sex, you want the person, you desire them in that way, that fleshly, shallow way. And then you realize, there's more to life than that when you have to now live with them and they have to live with you. And now you're like, what did I do? How did I get stuck in this? Because you didn't pick right. All he could think about in that song was he wanted to have intimacy with this girl. And he was going to say anything necessary to make that happen. Promise anything, do whatever. But is that really what you want, though? No, I want a life partnership. Someone that's going to understand their role, and I'm going to understand my role, and we're going to synergize and go forward as echad, as a unit. And if I was single right now, I would be patient for that. I would not rush into that, especially with all the counseling I've done, with all the terrible marriages. And let me tell you, there's a lot of them. Okay? And don't be fooled by everybody walking around like they're as happy as can be. Half of those are the worst. They're just good in public. All right? Because some of you will be like, those people end up in divorce, you'll be like, I didn't see that coming. I thought they were the perfect couple in public. Not the same when they're home. And then some of you get mad when you see, people like me that are not so good in public. If I'm having a problem with my wife, you'll know it. If she's having a problem with me, you'll know it. We're not hiding that stuff. Probably be good if we could, because you guys don't need to see all that. But I'm just saying is we don't put on the show. Some people are really good at the show. But that only makes it worse, because you're putting on that fake show only to go back into the real misery that you're in. Do not do this. Okay? So here's your basic rules of engagement. Number one, if you're covenanted and you're here, you want, or I don't care where you are, you want to find someone who's going where you're going, meaning they are under the same vertical structure. Don't you go look for anybody that's not under my covering if you're in this group. Why? Because then I won't have anything to be able to tell them when they're messing up. You marry somebody not in this group, and then you have a problem, and I want you both to sit with me, the person you marry is going to be like, I'm not under him. I'm not listening to that guy. But if you're both already trusting and submitted to this authority that I have with you, then I can say to whoever needs to, knock it off. Fix it. Straighten it out. Because I'll have leverage and authority that you voluntarily submitted to, that you chose to submit to. So I know you're thinking, oh, but that really limits the field. Good. I'm limiting all the terrible ones out of your field. Okay? Well, not all of them. There's probably some because you got the wheat and the tares and everything else. So there's probably some not so great ones in this field too. But I'm wiping out a whole bunch of them that you will absolutely have problems with. Don't go looking outside of this walk. Don't go looking anywhere else in this walk. If you have a teacher, a leader, if it's me, fine. If it's not, that's who you need to be under. I did a wedding not too long ago. She was under me. He wasn't. I said, if you want me to do this, you need to fix this so that you're both under the one he's under or you're both under me. And they came with me. Okay? Because it's not going to work otherwise. Okay? You need to be under authority, the same authority. Otherwise, there isn't anybody to straighten you out. I have a lot of marriages where people call us, and one of them is calling here, and the other one's not even in the walk, or they're doing some other thing, and they don't understand why I tell them, I cannot help you. I can't help you because your spouse is not going to sit with me and listen to anything, because the spouse doesn't look at me the way you do, doesn't trust that Abba's working with me the way you do. So no, 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 and no. Do not find somebody who's not under the same leadership, walking the same walk as you, period. End of story, no exceptions. Okay? John, you had that problem when I met you earlier, and you had somebody you were dating, and I said, this is a bad idea. Okay? And I'm glad that, I don't want to say I'm glad it didn't work out, but I'm glad it didn't work out. It was a bad idea. Okay? Let's not do that. Don't let your emotions and desperation and loneliness cause you to trip into the field that you shouldn't be farming in or the pond you shouldn't be fishing in, okay? A miserable marriage is worse than being single. Trust me, all right? And if you've been married before, you don't want to do this more than one more time. Okay, you've already had one that didn't work, or two, or whatever it was. So let's be a little bit more, diligent about how we go about the new one, the next one, the last one, so that it would be a last one. Okay? This is, so John, I bet you didn't know you were going to open all this up with your question, did you? But I think this is a really good question. I think that we need to understand as we're walking this out. If you are going to claim covenant, and that means that you trust that everything Yahweh says you're going to do, and that he's in charge, and that he's right and you're wrong about everything. He's always right, we're always wrong, unless we're like him, unless we're in line with him, right? Well, then you cannot worry about him providing for you. Maybe he wants you to stay single. I don't want you to get upset about that. Have peace that whatever he wants is what he wants. But forcing the issue and ending up in a bad marriage is a terrible idea. I don't even know how to emphasize. I mean, that is an awful idea. Because you feel trapped and you're miserable and you're suffering and it's embarrassing and it's socially embarrassing and it's all this other thing and all these other people are involved. It's brutal. Don't do it. Don't do it. But if you do find somebody, then you want to do the things that I've taught in the other classes that I've taught about this. Like you want to do the personality test and figure out to understand what makes them tick and why they're the way they are so they can understand you, why you're the way you are. So we do the color code thing. It's not like the gospel, so to speak, but it gives you some insight. You may realize, I don't want to marry somebody who's this combination of colors because I've already realized I don't do well with that. So finding that out up front may help a little bit, okay? Some of you may realize that you need, somebody maybe you've been with somebody before and that person was whatever they were, and you realize, no, I need someone who's more this other combination, okay? All you ladies, you need to find a guy that at least can activate and walk in the red side, okay? Even if that's not the primary color. But if the other colors have that red quietly sitting in a corner, that's not going to work well for you. They are not going to lead you right, take care of what needs to be taken care of, and get the thing done, and you're going to be frustrated trying to push them all the time, or drag them, or lead them, or whatever you're going to do, okay? And ladies, you all the blue that you guys got raging like crazy, you're going to have to get that under control, okay? Because I'll tell you what, if you get the red guy you want, he's going to smack the snot out of that blue. I don't mean physically. You're going to bang up against a strong red. He's just going to say, no, turn that noise off. Because some of you have tried that with me. You know exactly what I'm talking about, okay? But you should want that. That brings that emotional side under control. All right? My wife is very blue. You all know that. I know that. And there's some wonderful things to that. Okay? But it can be very challenging when we're both fighting for the lead. And so you need to know that, ladies. You don't want to fight for the control of the authority with your red man. And if you have a white man instead who's not fighting for anything, then you're just dominating him and think that's all wonderful until you get frustrated all the time because all you do is dominate him. Okay? And these are colors from the color code. This isn't like skin color. Not picking on white men, okay? But the white personality isn't the most aggressively productive of colors, okay? All right? And so that can be very challenging. Secondly, okay, you need to understand love languages. While you're vetting, you better make sure, it's very helpful, not required, that the person already knows how to speak your language. Because if you have similar languages, it makes life a lot easier, okay? I have no issues with my daughter. We have the same languages. As far as communicating love, we both naturally speak the same language, no problem. My wife and I have opposite languages, which means I have to think about how to speak hers, and she has to think about speaking mine. It's not impossible, it's just a little bit more effort. So I'm not saying if someone's love languages don't match, you don't marry them. I'm just saying, but be aware that that may be an area that takes more effort, okay? And then, of course, the expectations exercise, where you can explain to the other person what you expect them to do and what they can expect from you in the relationship. You're the woman, you say, this is what I am offering you as a wife, this is what you can expect from me, and this is what I expect from you as a husband. You're the man, this is what I'm offering you as a husband, you can expect this from me as a husband, and this is what I'm expecting from you as a wife, and then you negotiate so that you guys end up in agreement as to what that all looks like. Because when you first start off, I promise you, it's not gonna all match. A lot of it might, but it's not gonna all match. You gotta know that, okay? So, to wrap this all up, I understand the struggle, okay? I really do, because I was single a long time and I did not like it. So some of you are single and you don't like it, I get it, okay? So I don't want you to think, oh, what do you know? You got married at 18 and you never had been, no, I was single a long time, okay? And so I get it. And when I made the choice to walk in this walk, even though it was in that church, but it still was Torah keeping and Sabbath and all that stuff, and even in Christianity, that made us very small as a group, okay? Very small piece. So I knew I was fishing in a very small pond. And then the frustration of, I went to every single church area within driving distance, and there were no single women anywhere close to my age. Thousands of people in these congregations. In Long Island, there were 2 congregations. In Brooklyn, there were some congregations. I did a few in New Jersey, all part of the same church. All single girls, 18 and younger, like 18, not younger, but I'm saying 18, 19, which I wasn't. I don't know if some of you guys want these girls so young. I had no interest. I was in my 20s. I wanted somebody closer to my age, okay? All right, now, the rest of them were all in their 30s. And I wasn't looking for a cougar, all right? All right? Okay, I'm a lion, I'm king of the jungle. I'm not fighting with a cougar. Okay? So, I'm just saying I get the frustration, because I was sitting there going, what in the world is going on? How could there be so many singles and they're all guys? In all of these places, where are the ladies? There was tons of them. They were too young or too old. So it wasn't like they weren't there. They were frustrated too, by the way, because all the guys were too young for them. Or too old for them, either way. And so it was frustrating. So I get that. Anyway, so did that help you, John?
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right? Look, I think it was just a great question. It needed to be, covered. We may have to just pull that whole section out for people and put that for future reference. All right, Selena.
I have a quick one from the kids and then one from me. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, so the kids and I basically have pranks and practical jokes as a top love language. They want to know if they can celebrate April Fools and May Fools and June Fools, which means they're basically going to do what they always do anyway and just say April Fools.
No.
No?
No, because they're connected to other pagan things. So let's not if you want to do pranks, listen, I used to love doing pranks. I get it, okay? And some people like pranks, some people don't. They can be very creative. If you're going to do pranks, though, make sure you're only doing it with people that also enjoy them. Because you do it on someone who doesn't, you may actually get smacked pretty good. okay? Because the reaction might not be what you were hoping for. But if that's something you and your children do, just do it on the days that you do it, any day you do it. But let's link it to things that the world has kind of put out there that are actually pagan related, okay? Let's not do that. Okay, next.
Okay. Yeah, Tommy loves the pranks. He hates it, but he can outdo us, so. Okay, this may be a Janet problem, and you may get to this in the sin teaching, but I did write this down the first day, and you hadn't quite got to it yet. So sin is a breach of relationship. What do you do with people who premeditate to breach on purpose just to hurt you or just to hurt somebody you love? So, I try to forgive. I've been through the forgiveness teaching, probably need to do it again. And then, I think I'm okay, and then a memory pops up, or somebody does something again, or something like that. So I'm like angry again. So, at some point they may have been trained or programmed to just be that way, but at some point they've got free will, and they're just choosing to breach on purpose. All
right, so you have one primary issue and one secondary issue, okay? Your primary issue is boundaries. All right? If you have somebody that's breaching on purpose on a regular basis, you need to put them at a much further arm's length so they have less access to do that. All right? They're only doing it because you keep letting them do it. Understand that. If you got people on a regular basis breaching your relationship and messing you up and doing all kinds of things, it's only because you let them. Oh, Rabbi, I don't. Yes, you do. If you didn't let them, they'd stop. People try stuff with me. Guess what? I don't let them and it stops. Now, it may only stop because they have no more access, but it stops, okay? So part of it is boundaries. The other part of it is the forgiveness part, which is when things come up and your thoughts come up. Forgiveness is simply releasing all of the negative feelings. So you may not have released all of them for that to kind of pop back up. There may be a little root that's still in there that can metastasize. Like when they say they go to get cancer, they have to get all of it or else it could come back. Well, if you left a little piece somewhere, it could start to blossom and grow again, okay? So work on the forgiveness to make sure you really let go all of the negative emotions. By the way, go listen to the teaching for all you new people. That doesn't mean that reconciliation happens or restoration happens. Okay, the teaching talks about those options come after forgiveness, and they're only options. You do not need to do them, but you do need to forgive because it's about you releasing all that anger and that bitterness and all the negative emotion. Okay, but boundaries is what's needed here. And by the way, that's something when I counsel is one of the biggest problems all of you have is knowing how to set and maintain boundaries. You got people in your life that just run amok in your life because you don't have boundaries and fences to keep them from just running rampant in your life. And then they breach all over the place. Well, because you let them, okay? Don't let them. You come down pretty hard and say, hey, that's not appropriate, that's not acceptable. You keep doing that, I'm shutting off access. I don't need you in my life if you're going to keep doing that. All right, next.
So that would have been really helpful like 10 or 15 years ago with the boundaries.
It's never too late. The only thing is that when it's not been done at the right timing, it's harder to slam them in place with the person believing it's a real boundary. So you have to really be hard about and firm about making sure, I know I haven't done this in the last 15 years with you, but this is over. This boundary is real and you do not cross it. If you do, there'll be a problem. That problem may mean I'm not going to talk to you. I'm going to shut you off, going to block you on my phone, whatever it is. Okay?
So most of the people are already gone. Like,
as in passed away?
Passed away, yeah. So, and it's...
Well, then you're still having a forgiveness problem. You have to let go of the negative emotions.
It's hard when it's like, oh, I just remembered this. I didn't have this memory before, and it popped up, and now I'm mad again. So that's just something that has to continually happen.
Because it's a new thing that you now have to forgive them for.
Got it.
It's not, look, if it's something that keeps popping up that you've already dealt with, then you have a forgiveness issue with that particular thing that you haven't really let it go. If it's a new memory of something that they did or happened to you that you forgot about or wasn't really thinking about, well, then that's a new thing you have to forgive them for. Okay? And by forgive them, you don't need them to be around. You just have to let go of the negative emotions. Okay? All right, Melissa.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I wanted to say a few things.
You got to put that right up by your
I
mouth.
wanted to say a few things and ask a question. About 6 weeks ago, you said that when you're thrown into the branch that you're not tormented forever, that Yahweh wasn't cruel. And that's the first time I ever heard it, even though I've been here, I've been listening for a year. And so that it was like a mountain was taken off of me. It was like all the distrust was gone because I realized then he wasn't the cruel person that I thought he was. And then you said that the millennium, you taught about the millennium, and that, I've been going through, everybody's dying right now. I've lost over 30. My aunt died Friday. My mother's on hospice. And so that brought such healing to me to realize that they can have another chance, because when I was there, I realized there's fruitcakes in my family. There's some nuts, some ho-hos, some ding-dongs. They were really out there, My aunt tells me, she said, you need to go to the cemetery and talk to your grandma and tell her that her daughter's sick. I said, I don't talk to the dead. And that's crazy because she's asleep and she doesn't hear you anyway. So that brought freedom. And the fact that all these, like you said, all these churches just keep, they put fear in their people because they talk about the conspiracy and this is going to happen and that.
Right.
And so what brought peace to me, because I always wondered, how will I know if I'm deceived? And you said, if you're doing what you're supposed to and you're in the walk and you're obeying his commands and his feasts, then you're going to be okay, And if they're not keeping them, then they're false and that they're not true. And so for me, that just brought such freedom and took away that fear because, if we're in the walk. And so I told my mother, I said, I have to go back to Tennessee. The hardest thing to do is walk away when she was still alive, knowing I'll never see her again. But after I counseled with you, I went and talked to her, and she said, you need to go back and live your life. I'm going to be what I'm going to be, what if I die or live or whatever. And so we really had a heart-to-heart talk, and that brought peace because I know where I'm supposed to be, and that's here. And it was hell getting here, 19 long months of getting here, and then I came, and I had to go back to Texas. It was a 2,000-mile round trip, but, I know where I'm supposed to be, and my siblings even said, well, you chose to go there instead of taking care of Mom. I said, well, she's dying, and I'm not going to be able to tear by myself. But so I have learned the last year of listening before I came here not to take other people's burdens. I didn't have to witness. I didn't have to butt in where I wasn't supposed to and impose myself to be evil on other people's business. And that has all brought such freedom. And I got lost in my marriage, and I'm finding out who I am again because everything was about him. So I ate a hamburger. I listened to music, little things that you take for granted or me are coming back. And I told my mom I have to go level up. And this next year is going to be hard because I need to level up in all 6 areas of my life, everything. And I don't know anything. I'm just standing here, and I tell Yahweh I'm going to get 100% in the walk, and whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. So I read Numbers this morning when they came against Moses, and 250 of them died. And so I thank you for being that anointed and appointed and always telling the truth because, I watched all these people die, but the hardest thing in my life is the deceit and the lies that we've been told about Yahweh. And that shook me to my foundation. I can never get over the shock of it, that the whole world is deceived. But I know one thing, I'm not going to be deceived anymore because I'm here. And my family said, well, I don't know how you can go somewhere you don't know anybody. I said, I do it all the time. It's nothing for me. But I said, they know the person that I want to know, and they've been my family. And y'all called me when I was gone and checked on me and texted me. And my mother saw that, and my aunt saw it. And I talked to her. We went to school for 2 years for deliverance ministry and got our license to preach. And I was able to tell her that that was wrong. And she was strong, even though she was dying. She grabbed me and she said, I ask him to forgive me for all my sins known and unknown. And she was at peace, and she died Friday. And I'm thankful for that I got to share with her and for this family and all the things that you teach that just take away all the the junk in our life, the lies and deceit, because that's one thing I cannot handle anymore is lies and deceit about the walk in Yeshua. So I'm so grateful. That just brought so much relief and healing in my life so far.
Amen.
I can't wait to see myself a year from now, you know.
There you go.
So anyway, thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Bakar. I love you all so much. Thank you.
Amen. This was good. All right, so that was awesome. I really appreciate it, but I want to do something that a lot of these other teachers out there don't do, okay? I'm going to, because they'll let people say anything from the mic whenever they do on occasion let people say stuff, and then if there's anything that was amiss, they don't say anything. So, Melissa, I just want to make sure that it's clarification for people that when you were talking about the family members getting another chance, there are no other chances. It's whether or not they actually had a chance in the first place. That's what the Millennium and Kingdom teaching teaches. Everybody gets one. The question is, did they actually have that chance? What's a chance look like? It means their bubble has to be popped so that they can have life and death laid out before them and they can choose one. Okay? So I just want to make sure I got to say that because Melissa's, everything you said was so great, but that one little piece, I just want to clarify that because somebody may be listening and think, oh, people get more than one chance. No, they don't. Problem is that most people who are in this life who have not been called or chosen, this is not their chance. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go listen to the Millennium and Kingdom teaching, okay? But I'm so glad that so many of you, I think Maisie was up earlier during the prayer time and others saying how, you know, some of the things that we've done through teachings and counsel have just taken a tremendous amount of burdens off because you now see things correctly, which relieves so much strain, stress, anguish, depression, and whatever. It just releases all that stuff. Sometimes it's about going and meeting with somebody and having them just giving you permission to let some stuff go. Okay? And that's what I did with a couple of you this last week. A few people just needed somebody to say, it's okay to cry. It's okay to whatever it was that I gave them permission for. Because they just needed, not that they needed my permission, they just needed somebody to tell them it was okay, that it was appropriate, and it needed to come from authority. And so, you know, I'm just very blessed to be able to do that. All right, Ashley.
And sometimes all I need is just to hear your voice and everything is better. Don't even have to talk anymore. I had two questions. One, I was talking to my homeschool mom friends group, and a lot of them don't want to say the Pledge of Allegiance, and it caught my attention. What do you think about the Pledge of Allegiance? Because it says under God, and there's more than one God, and it doesn't differentiate.
Okay, it's so funny that you think that's the problem in the pledge. There's so many other bigger problems than that. Okay? Because you're pledging allegiance to a flag. Why are we doing anything to an object? Okay? So there's so many other bigger problems than saying one nation under God. Because that could mean whatever anybody thinks God means. But why are we pledging loyalty to an object? Yeah, I can understand people being patriotic and pledging loyalty to a nation. Okay? Mm-hmm. You could be a loyal American, I suppose. But to pledge allegiance to a flag, and it says, and to the republic for which it stands. But why are you pledging allegiance to a flag? Okay, that to me is much more problematic than the other stuff. So no, I don't get involved in all those things.
I'd never even thought about it. I just went straight to, thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow, okay. My second question is, I was talking to someone, there was an incident yesterday, and it was kind of a big fight. And I was talking to someone at Starbucks, and they said, it's okay. They said J name. He got mad too, and I'm just thinking, well, yeah, he may have gotten mad, but he's probably more under control than I was. And I wanted to bring that to you. How do I, did he ever actually get mad? And if he did, how was it okay? Because every time I see mad or I get mad, I have very hard time staying under control.
All right, so I guess it's a good question from the point of view, okay, let me help you understand where I come from, okay? Because I believe that most of the time, not always, I'm human, but most of the time I use that what looks like being mad or angry as a tool to communicate. That's what Yeshua was doing. He wanted to make sure that the money changers understood this is not good what you're doing. Okay, so that anger And you see Abba do this, and you see that throughout scriptures when he gets angry with Israel, he gets angry with the nation and does things. But it's not the emotion where we're lashing out. Okay, so Yeshua wasn't emotionally lashing out. He wanted to make the scene really clear, I'm not pleased with this. And then if you notice, he was calm after that and he was fine. Because it wasn't an out of control, out of balance thing. It was a conscious choice. And so if you've ever been in counseling, there's times when you've been in counseling where I've gotten pretty strong with you at times, but I wasn't angry. But other people might say, why are you angry? I'm not angry. I want you to hear and feel that so that you know that that's something you should not be doing. So it's to get the communication where it needs to be. Most people are not capable of this, and I'm not even capable of it some of the time because I just actually lose my temper and I get angry. But most of the time when I'm counseling or in communication or interacting with people, even employees or vendors that I work with, they need to feel that communication of displeasure. So it's not so much just anger, but it's that displeasure. I am not happy with what you did. You need to fix this. And so there's a tone that comes with that, which I gave you even just, I could say, well, I'm not happy with this, you need to fix it. Or I could say, hey, that's not good, you need to fix that right now. And then I could turn back to this. Because it's not an actual emotion, it's a level of communication. So when Yeshua did it, when you see Yahweh doing it all throughout scriptures, it's not the emotion. Yahweh says, I'm not a man to get all, angry and all this stuff like a man does. But I'm going to show you my displeasure, my wrath, meaning you need to really learn the lesson that this needs to not happen ever again. Okay? And if I communicate that all sweet, soft voiced, and gentle, you're not going to get the message. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? So the problem is that most people are not capable because their emotions are driving, especially all you blues, okay? So you get upset, and when you get upset, your feelings get hurt, you get disappointed, you feel disloyalty, whatever it is, you now need your pound of flesh. You need the other person to feel what you're feeling. Now you're not in control. It's like I've told people, some people are totally against, some people are for spanking their children. I say, well, if you're going to spank them, you cannot do it in anger. You have to do it in control. Because otherwise, you're hitting and you're punishing your child because you're mad, you're angry, as opposed to communicating, this swat is to get your attention so that you know better and that you don't want to swat next time. Instead, they're hearing, Mom hates me and is angry and is beating on me. See, it's a different communication. Abba always lets them know why they're where they are and why they're getting what they're getting. That communication is always very clear. Yeshua said the same thing when he flipped the tables on the money changers. And it was his righteous indignation that he was showing there. I mean, he was showing, I am not pleased the way you're doing this stuff in my Father's house. He could have just gone in and said, hey guys, this is wrong, you need to stop that. That wasn't going to communicate anything. He walked in there and was bull in the china shop, flipping tables and looking at him and saying, you guys have turned this into, okay? And he said, that's not good. It's a communication. And some of you have seen me when I get strong that way and you're like, I don't want to see that again. Good, that's the point. But then it surprises you when I turn back to this right afterwards. Because I already made the point that was needed to be made. It wasn't because I'm not upset. People have said to me, why are you upset? An elder's been there. I'm like, I'm not upset. But your tone of voice was a communication tool. But a lot of you are not capable of that. It takes a lot of discipline to do that. Okay? So I'm not judging you at all. I'm just saying it's a lot of discipline. When your emotions get triggered, then you're now acting out of emotion, not out of communication. When I elevate my voice, when I get strong with you, most of the time, sometimes it's not, but most of the time, it's me purposely communicating a particular way. Sometimes I'm losing my temper and I've lost my control and I'm angry. Okay, I still have that problem just like anybody else. But most of the time, it's to get your attention to realize that needs to stop, whatever it was, or that needs to never happen again, or that's really what's blowing up your life. And I want you to really remember that point. So it takes strength to do that in the way it's communicated. All right, does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you. And you mentioned, I was actually going to ask a third question about flipping the table, but you already kind of verified that that happened. Where is that at so I can read it?
I don't have the verse in front of me.
Okay.
Just look it up in Google. Just look up, Messiah flipping the money changers tables or whatever. Just look that up.
What did you say, the money changing?
Just look at the money changers tables. Just look that up. I'll tell you right now. It's so easy. Matthew 21:12, I think, is what it says. When I just Googled it real quick. Let me just look that up. Is that right? Okay, Matthew 21:12. See, it's that easy. All right, Michael.
I also had 3 questions. They should be quick, if that's okay. The first one was in Bereshit, because we've got the first 2 sins that were committed, Adam and Chava, and Cain and Hevel. And I wondered sometimes, why are those really in there if we have the Torah and we've been given the commands? Why are these accounts in here? And I was teaching Constantine something because he has a question, and it just all of a sudden occurred to me that, and I want you to tell me if this is correct thinking or not, but these 2 sins are in here because they provide us with the basic framework for how a sin is constructed.
Probably.
So that was just my...
And by the way, your son, who's very impressive in his focus, I think it'll be hysterical one day to have a Rabbi Constantine. It'll just sound so funny, okay?
It will be... Yeah,
I'll have to give him a new Hebrew name instead, okay?
But the second question I had dealt, in my opinion, I think, with Deuteronomy 17. The Sanhedrin is the body of the lawmakers that we have that gave us the Mishnah and the Talmud and stuff, and they're from the house of Yehuda. David's from the house of Yehuda. Messiah's from the house of David. And so I'm wondering, should we be, obviously the punishments that were given there are not okay because they put up fences around the Torah and then treated those fences as though they were the Torah and punished them that way. But should we be obeying or trying to obey anything in there based on the fact that it was given by an authority?
Okay, so there are some confused things with what you said. All right, the Sanhedrin did not give you the Talmud. All right, you have 2 particular schools of thought that gave you the Talmud. You got the house of Hillel and the house of Shammai. So you have the Jerusalem Talmud, you have the Babylonian Talmud. Okay. Now, a lot of what's in there did come out of Sanhedrin-level discussions and arguments about the walk and about the things that have to happen. But these things were not developed as, documentations from the Sanhedrin. Now, there are some things that the Sanhedrin gave us, like the calendar we use today was something that was given by the Sanhedrin, okay? Now, so that's an important clarification, okay? You have Shammai versus Hillel. The Babylonian Talmud is much more comprehensive, which is the Hillel version. And it also, each group thought the other group was a bunch of unstudied idiots. Okay, they just thought they were just off in La La Land. So they didn't really respect each other as much as you would like to think. The 2 great teachers and schools of thought back around in Yeshua's day, okay? And so you have that is where we get these things from. So when we talk about authority, there's some things that I would think would still be authoritative from the point of view is that it depends on who made the decision and why they made the decision and who the decision was for, okay? The Hillel II calendar was made for us. It was made for those in dispersion. We're in dispersion. So that was a ruling that was made for us, which then for all you geniuses out there who've been doing this for 5 minutes who think you know better and want to change the calendar, just understand that there was a legitimate legal body that legally put this in place, and so you need to show at least some respect for that being what we have today, okay? It wasn't just something a bunch of guys came up with, but it was actually legally put in place for us in dispersion. Okay, a long time ago, but we're still in dispersion. Now, I generally don't use, although I have 73 volumes of the Babylonian Talmud on my bookshelf, I don't use it for very much. Think of it like an encyclopedia. You might look something up in it. It's a reference material. It's not something you would sit down and read as just like, a reading type of a thing. I mean, it's literally 73 books of it. It takes up my entire wall of my, one level of the wall of the bookshelves. The stuff that I would value out of that is stuff that we have understanding to do without understanding of how or what it would look like. Like, for example, the commandment to wear the tzitzit. Okay, so we wear tzitzit. We have no idea what that looks like. Scripture doesn't say. It says, make one strand blue, put them in the corner of your garments. What does that look like? How many strands are they using, period? Are they knotting them and twisting them or tying them? We have nothing in Scripture to tell us any of that. So that I would go to my older brothers in the Jewish community who've been doing this longer than anybody and say, well, what's your understanding of this? Because I don't have any understanding of it because Scripture doesn't give me any. It just says to dye one strand blue and put them in the corners. So some of you say, well, then that's all we have to do. No, there was more understanding that was going on because people were doing this and they knew how to do this and Moses had them doing it, etc. And so it wasn't just something you could just do whatever you want because everybody had to be able to see it and know what it was. So I can believe there was a uniformity to it so that when you would see it, you would know it wasn't just strings hanging from someone's clothes and it wasn't a fashion statement. So it's things like that that I would look towards the writings of the sages or the Talmud or the Sanhedrins to see, well, what did you guys understand this to be? But I don't find that comes up a whole lot. Not for me anyway. So for those of you that think I'm referring to this stuff, I would tell you if I did, and I would quote it to you, and I would tell you where I got it from. And there's a lot of rabbis out there that are Messianic that teach almost completely out of the Targums, which are a lot of the sage writings, and out of the Talmud, and out of the, all of these peripheral writings. I do not. So I don't reference them to you. I don't tell you where they came from, etc. Okay, go ahead.
And my last question is, in Galatians 6, verse 2, bear one another's burdens and so complete the Torah of Messiah. And I am struggling to come up with a context for what that exactly means.
Let's change that, I'm going to guess here, right, to an idiomatic phrase. What do you think would be the idiomatic phrase? What's it trying to say, saying bear one another's burdens? What's another simple way to say that? To tolerate? No, I think something more strong than that. How about to be there for? Be there for each other. Okay? Because that's I think what he's trying to say. To complete the Torah, you have to be there for each other. Okay? Bearing the burdens sounds much more like, well, I got to tell you what I'm struggling with, and then you have to somehow have a share in that burden. And so, no, that's not what it's talking about. It's like, be there. Support each other, encourage each other. If there's something you could get involved in and that you could share that with each other, be there. But be there for each other. Care about and be somebody that they know when they need you, you're there. Be there for each other. Does that make some sense as possibly what it's talking about there? Did that help, Mike?
So listening to them if they need somebody to talk to, helping them with something they might need help with. If it's
straightening them out if they need a little bit, somebody to be a little straight with them. Okay? Maybe they just need somebody to be honest.
You're the best at straightening out.
No. You guys can do that too. You disciple, which means you start to sound like me. You know how I may answer something. So, Elder does that all day long, starting to frustrate some people. Because I get to hear him saying, you already know what Rabbi's going to say, and I'm pretty sure he's going to say this, and then he'll say it, and I'm sitting in my office going, yep, that's exactly what I would say. And so, yeah. The other thing I would say to you, Mike, about Genesis, about Bereshit, is that when you see the initial people making mistakes, they're doing the breaches, they're sinning, it's not just to give us that format like you said, but it's also to show you that it doesn't matter how immersed you are and selected, you're still going to have that opportunity to have a weak moment and screw up. Okay? Even though they were taught, and they were the only human beings in existence, and they were taught directly by the Creator, they still, because they were given free will, had the opportunity to make choices that were not the best choices. So none of us are free from that, okay? Yeshua was tempted. He just didn't give in to any temptation. It says he was tempted. I mean, every effort was made to tempt him, which means he had thoughts in his head going, well, I guess I could do that. And the thought was like, no, I'm not doing that, because he did not sin, but he was tempted. The flesh can be tempted. He was in a flesh suit. I mean, otherwise, why would Hasatan offer him anything if they knew there was a waste of time? He had to see. He had to make the effort. He had to take the shot. Okay? And then Yeshua was like, nice shot, but no. Okay? It's a good effort, but I'll pass. Okay? That's what you got. All right? All right, Craig.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay, tying on to what you said about other Messianic teachers and their teaching of the Mishnah and a bunch of other things, and maybe a good time to talk about the true vine and an undiluted branch of the truth that doesn't actually come through the MJAA or some of the other actual Christian organizations that I think their teachers can tend to confuse some things. And I think even within the worldwide or the branches of the worldwide, let's say our view of what the Last Supper was comes from a perspective that's not taught what the Last Supper was. Like they're still, even though I think the majority of us can agree that the 3 days doesn't, it's not from Friday night to Sunday. Within that, there's still a wide variance of absolute confusion over what days and what happened at what time, and including that most of these groups think that the Last Supper was the Pesach.
Right.
And that I think that looking at it from a source, from the branch that is what branch that your experience branch was, gave us a much more truthful timeline to what the Last Supper was, to what he was doing with his disciples. And to kind of tie it into a question that there's a lot of traveling teachers that are, they go around for the feast and teach, say, if it's within a temple service context, or they have it's a big conference. Within the structure of authority, within the structure of that kingdom to come, within the structure of the gospel, are they all and everybody engaged in that type of activity, not engaged in sin?
Okay, so let me just kind of, take it in this direction. Without, I guess there's no way to even avoid it to whatever degree. Look, there are always going to be warnings in Scripture, even warns us about the idea that there's going to be a mix of what's out there teaching-wise. There's going to be false teachers and true teachers, okay? Problem is, you're warned about them, but you're not necessarily given a very clear understanding of how to know which is which, because until you learn enough and you learn how much you really don't know, then you don't really know what to measure up, because you're really just measuring people up against you initially, not realizing that that's a bad measuring stick. It's a very poor measuring stick, depending on what you do or don't already know, right? And so, because some people think when I mentioned that I came through a brief period of time with Worldwide Church of God, that's where my teachings come from. But it does not. I teach an awful lot of things that they do not agree with, and they do not teach, okay, which is what Craig is saying here. Because one of the things they teach is that there was a day between the Passover and the first day of unleavened bread, because they recognized that the Last Supper was not when everybody else then started the holy day. But they are forcing the Last Supper to be a Passover, which is what I cover in the Passover Q&A, okay, in part 2. And so when I was with them, they would have a Passover meal in a very Christian sort of way, okay? Very solemn and somber, and they'd have a little wine, a little matzah, almost like communion. Yeah. And they would also do a little foot washing thing. And then the next day you just went to work or whatever, because the next day was just the next day. Then the holy day started after that, okay? And then they would do a meal the night before that called the night to be much remembered, which is really what the Passover was supposed to be, a night to be much remembered, because it is going into the holy day. But see, when you are stuck with the belief, which is part of what he's talking about, is that when you're looking for teachers and everything else, you got to be careful that you're not already locked into a thought. So if you're already locked into that the Last Supper was Passover, then that presents a lot of problems timing-wise that you have to maneuver to make it work, which is what these other people have done. And there are some pretty prominent Messianic teachers out there that adamantly believe the Last Supper was a Passover and disagree with me. I mean, big-name guys. That's okay, they can disagree. So that puts you in your quandary. And as he called this the particular branch of whatever Father's doing with me. I don't know what's the right word to describe that. That's certainly a fine enough way to do it. But this is all about, are you finding an actually anointed teacher, anointed from above?